All right, we're here with William, and he's not in the best mood, but I'm not afraid. And
I'm in a great mood.
yeah,
Fuck you.
well, that's a good beginning to our episode tonight. We're gonna talk about the pros and cons of adult content. And by that, well, I'm blowing up on Facebook there. Okay, what I mean by this is we're trying to calibrate about especially with like Nina coming in the mix, where we're a doll band and all this kind of stuff, and it's like dolls can be a kind of more R-rated thing, or they can be a more G-rated thing, and so we're trying to calibrate like how adulty, how sexy are we, and how G-rated are we. So I'm curious what you think about how we should be acting just in general online.
How you should be acting?
Like, should we being sexy? Okay, because this comes up for me because I'm a teacher. So I teach astrology, and it's like I feel like teachers are supposed to be really well behaved and pure people, but I'm more than a teacher. I'm also a performer and all these kind of things. And like, if you bore the audience with G-rated kid shit, like, we're adults, you know what I mean? So
Graded.
It's like
G-rated, graded.
Oh, graded. So it's like I don't want to bore the crowd with G-rated stuff, but I also don't want to deter students with R-rated stuff, and I really don't know how to calibrate this. So I was curious to your thoughts.
Well, if you're on YouTube, you're calibrated to a degree, because if it's too adult, you'll get banned or whatever they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to be to a certain. You can't be adult as we know it in like other realms. Like YouTube is pretty G-rated to a degree, maybe R at the most. So if you're on YouTube, that's definitely a guideline. But like, I don't know. I mean, dolls, unless you're a real doll.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Okay, so you say something about real dolls, which are basically sex dolls, and it's like. So it's like, for example, one con of being adultish, if I talk about sex dolls on this channel, then my parents might watch it and get disturbed. That's one con. Or I might have a student watch it and be like, oh my gosh, she's too sexual and I don't want to be in her class. But astrology is sexual in as much as like we deal with, it's like adult school. We deal with sexuality in astrology. So
I mean, astrology has a very sexual aspect to it, as anybody that knows astrology would know. But do you think that if your students perceive you as too sexual or too human, then you lose your status as a teacher?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm kind of worried about. But it's like I'm also a Scorpio, and so some people say I'm a Libra, but I identify as a Scorpio. I have a lot of Scorpio in my chart, which is the most kind of dirgy and misbehaving sign. So if I was expressing myself, I would be like, rah, I'm not like a...
You restrain yourself.
I do, but in some ways, okay, so if we're kind of creating more of a show or show business, I don't really want to restrain myself, because it's like, it's adult school astrology in show business, and I want to make adult entertainment in as much as I want to entertain adults, not children.
Right. Yeah, I mean, your audience isn't children,
Yeah.
Do you think that your daughter watches your thing?
Well, that's the thing. Is like, okay, so you remember
she's not a child anymore either.
Well, she's 17, but you remember Punky Bruiser? Do you remember that band?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that was my raunchy band from Minneapolis, and when my daughter was young, I actually put a ceasefire on Punky Bruiser content going out because it was raunchy.
Yeah. That at that time that would have been inappropriate.
Yeah, because my kid was small, but now she's older and she's herself makes off-color jokes, and I'm kind of saying it's like it's to the point where, and Lisa Ganser came at me recently from Punky Bruiser saying like, should we release these videos? And I'm saying it's time, but then will that deter students?
It shouldn't. I mean, I think anybody that's your student, especially a student of your subject matter, would understand that people have a life, people have a past, and you're who you are. Like, it's not like they would hold it against you. I don't think. That's my opinion. You know, if you were a professor of science or, you know, a professor of like ancient history at a university, it might be different. You might want to try to keep that kind of stuff on the DL. But I think anybody that's a student of yours and a student of astrology would, you know, welcome that kind of humanity.
Mm. Well, there's something to be said for if we are adultish. One pro of that is that people can be themselves in class. Like, you know, because a lot of the reason I arrived at adultism is when I worked at the Portland School of Astrology for 7 years, students would raise their hand and all of a sudden they start talking about really highly sexual things and stuff. And they're like, my Scorpio, this and that, my 8th house, this and that. And I remember I developed this phrase I would say, the church lady in me is horrified, but the Scorpio in me understands. And I would go on and on, and that was my way of kind of like cleaning it up so that the other students didn't feel uncomfortable.
Right.
But really what I learned from that is people in astrology school want to talk about real stuff, relationships, this, that. And so by creating a more organically kind of, you know, PG-13 to R-rated environment, the students can kind of be themselves.
Yeah, I think that's pretty important in your field, in that field, you know.
Yeah.
Pretty important that you be yourself. Like, if you're putting on an act or, you know, pretending to be something you're not, it's not really getting to the core of what you're doing, I don't think. Do you agree with that?
Well, there's actually a theory about this. So as a teacher, you're supposed to render yourself to teaching. Like, so let's say you're kind of a fuddy-duddy. You have to be the fuddy-duddy teacher because you have to be yourself. If you're not yourself, the students don't trust your teacher persona. Right. So, like, I'm just kind of a rocker, you know? It's like I used to smoke and drink and all these things, and I don't do those anymore. But that's me. It's like I'm the rocker teacher. So, yeah. Of course I would be not approved.
I'm sure there's a fine line. Like, you know, if you're not yourself, your students don't trust you. But also, if you're not an authority figure and, you know, you keep a certain air of authority and, like, I don't know. Having that air of authority also means them not knowing every little aspect of your life and not knowing every little thing you do outside of school. You know, like picture any teacher like you had in high school or college that you looked up to. Did you know anything about their personal life?
No. And
if you knew they were like a deviant of some kind, would you have lost respect for them? Probably, to a degree.
Yeah.
Depending on the subject matter, you know. But like, if it was your art teacher, maybe not. You know, so where does astrology lie in that? It's not art, but it's also not like it's not like you were a professor emeritus of English literature or something. You know what I mean? I think it comes in degrees, but like I think also being a teacher, you have to have an air of authority. Is the wrong word, but you know, like
it's got to be a safe space.
You can't be a peer with your students sometimes. You know. Depending on, again, your approach and your subject matter. I can't imagine, like, I did have teachers, like, in college that were, you know, student teachers. It was like, you don't listen to them. You know what I mean? Like, if you're on the same level as them, or like I had a teacher in high school, he was a coach, but he was a sub-teacher, and he would sub in for people, and he was, like, 3 years older than us. It was like, nobody listened to him. You know what I mean? Because we knew his business. Like, he was one of us. You know what I mean? He dated a senior in high school when he was a coach, and like nobody listened to him, nobody respected what he said as a teacher. You know what I mean? But no disrespect to him, it was just his position. But like, I don't know. I think that to be a teacher, you have to have a certain air of authority, for lack of a better term.
Well, then in some ways it just makes me want to quit teaching because it's like I can either be a rocker and kind of be on that side of things and just give up on the teaching thing, or I can keep teaching and, you know, it's a calibration thing, I suppose. But like coming up here, I'm teaching a sexy astrology class at a Portland Me fair. It's like a metaphysical wellness fair, and I got booked for that. So then am I supposed to not promo that, or, you know, because that might, you know, it's because, okay, I'm like basically an actor in some ways of like, I'm myself getting booked for like hundreds of different appointments in a year, and I have to act per the context. You know, it's like when David Letterman was doing interviews, like he would have guests on that were children, and he would be really kind of, you know, pure in those cases, but then he would have like he had Sharon Stone on, and then he was like really naughty with her, and like so I think if I'm gonna be more of an entertainer or an actor, then maybe because I have to act to the booking.
Yeah. It's on a per case basis. I believe it's case dependent.
Mm.
Depends on what you're teaching at the moment or what you're booked to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've taught at music, at engineering, schools, and it's not like I'm teaching them anything technically that they don't already know or won't know soon. But like I'm booked to do those things for my experience, which I have tons more experience than anybody that's a student there. It's not like I'm going to teach them something new about Pro Tools, because anybody could learn that from going online, but like how that applies to a practical situation in the studio and like my experience in the studio with bands, that's above and beyond what they know at that point in their life. So you're maybe not teaching a lot that they don't maybe already know or think, but like you're being booked for your experience in that so you have to kind of teach in that with that in mind. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like not like as a peer, but not as like a holier than thou, like godlike figure that you must listen to.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's somewhere in between. There's a gray area.
I mean, that's what I'm kind of getting is it's like a calibration thing. Like today I was looking, we were doing Mad Libs on Facebook, which is a very clean, fun thing to do.
It can be.
Well, exactly. So Nina showed up and she was like, container, and I was like, oh, that's a good one, container, and like and then I was looking at gifts and I was like, oh my god, you could really go adulty with that idea, container, but then exactly, but then I chose one where it was like a kid behind bars, and I was like, you right now, or whatever. And so I think what I'm gonna do is when I'm talking to the ubiquitous receiver, which is Facebook, for example, that's we don't know who's looking, then, and it's not context dependent, it's just everyone at once, then I would maybe choose to calibrate on the more PG-13 to PG side.
Mm-hmm.
But then if I get, booked for Sexy Astrology class, of course, in that class, I'm going to go R-rated because that's the booking.
Yeah. It's, again, case dependent, I think. You don't have to be the same. I mean, you always be you, but you don't have to have the same approach for every single thing.
Yeah. Yeah, they say like in acting, you're supposed to take yourself, your character, and render it to each context. And I think we have to take Facebook and say that's a ubiquitous receiver context where you're talking to just the general public.
Yeah.
And so that could be like a soccer mom or I mean, not a kid, but it could be like a churchgoer, it could be anybody. So I think the calibration there is on Facebook. But then it's like, do I then advertise my Sexy Astrology class on Facebook, or do I not include that? Well, I want to advertise the class. So then it gets to be like, but that would be like teaching human sexuality. That's not creepy. That's a class.
No, I mean, it's a class. Like, there's sex ed, there's, all kinds of stuff regarding sexuality being taught everywhere, every day, by PhDs, by, and everybody in between,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's bad to advertise it. You just have to present it in a certain way that is, looks professional, not just like some fly-by-night, like it depends on how you present it, really. I think.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, because I think when you're teaching human sexuality, it's like the key is to not be creepy.
Yeah.
And to have a reverence for the subject. Sorry.
Right, and it's not like anybody that would attend or want to be taught is brand new to the subject. They know things too, and so you have to kind of approach it like that. I think, like, it's not like you're teaching a room full of virgins with no experience. Of course, people know about a lot of aspects of sexuality. You're just imparting knowledge about something they may not know fully about or may know partially about.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about swearing. Okay.
Why the fuck not?
So like you just swore on here, so it's like, and people swear on my videos all the time. Like part of being a host is not being like every time someone swears, being like, oh my god, it's like I can't be like stopped while I'm hosting because people swore or like
Yeah, I don't think swearing is as big of a deal as it used to be. You know, everybody swears. Why hide it? You know, I mean, you can have some decorum and not swear every other word because you're uncomfortable speaking. You know, some people do that.
Yeah.
But it happens in the course of any conversation with most people in the world. You know, why hide it? Especially, I mean, YouTube. You know, being as family friendly as they claim to be, they're swearing all over YouTube, and like, you know, it's just normal. It's not abnormal. Like, it's been normalized more so in the past decades or so. I don't think it's a huge deal.
Okay, so swearing is not a big deal, but it's more not being creepy and not just airing all your business.
Yeah, like not gratuitously swearing, and not like, you know, it depends on why you're swearing. If it's just in the course of a conversation, I don't think it's a big deal. But like, if you're doing it for the sake of doing it, it's a different thing, isn't it?
Okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything else about adult content. Those are really the two adulty things. The other thing I was gonna say is, like, sometimes I have guests who talk about sex. Like, for example, on the Ricky Williams show on Wednesday, Ricky brings up sexuality a lot. Like, we were talking about his Mars, and we're talking about Mars and like violence. He's like, well, why can't I just have sex? Like, I can say that because he said it on the show. Am I to talk to him and say, like, can we not talk about that on our shows, or should I just let him fly and be himself?
I mean, he's just being him. You booked him. Did you not know that was part of him before?
I mean, I didn't really know him that well.
You weren't expecting it? Kind of?
Well, now I expect it because he brings it up like frequently, but
yeah.
I find it to be entertaining and a appealing part of him because it's not dry content. Like, I like the adult nature of how he is.
Right. And do you feel that it's somehow creepy or like out of line or over the top, or it's just in the course of him being him?
Well, I don't find stuff like that creepy, but
Right.
some people do. Some people would find it off-putting. Like, there's the more, you know, clean, charted people. I'm just a rocker, man. It's like, I'm a rocker.
Yeah. Off-putting, like Bill Cosby? I'm just kidding.
No. Well, yeah, Bill Cosby, that's creepy. Or like, everyone thought Pee Wee Herman was creepy, although that story is a little...
I mean...
Because he was in the appropriate location. I mean, see, it's a kind of a eye of the beholder thing.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Would it be creepy if it was not a famous person? You got caught in a place that people normally doing that.
Well, yeah, no, that's not creepy. I mean,
it might be creepy if there was like a family sitting in front of him or something. But he got caught alone in a place that people do that necessarily, you know, daily. Like, he's just famous. Yeah. That's why it became a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it is or it isn't creepy. I wasn't there, but like...
Well, like, okay, as far as the Ricky Wood thing is, like, I don't think he's creepy. I don't think what he says is off-putting to me. I'm the executive producer of our show, and so I would say keep it. Because, I guess you could say sex sells. I mean, if that would be one pro of having sexuality in our content.
Sure. Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know the content. I don't know the content of which you speak, but like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, you know, unless he's being creepy about it, which I'm sure he's not. It's just being him, being honest, you know. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, why hide it, you know?
Yeah. Well, then sometimes, like, when we're doing like rock and roll stuff, you know, we throw around double entendres and all this kind of stuff, but we're like creating rock and roll. You know, I went to a rock show the other night, and like the people on stage were totally saying some shit, and I'm like, that's rock and roll. Like, so it's like, I guess I have a problem being a hybrid teacher and rocker. Like, who was that guy in was it Iron Maiden, or who was the guy who was the professor but also the rocker?
Well, there's a few of those. I'm not sure.
But it's like, I don't know how they, you know, and I had this queer theory professor in college, and he was like, he would go on and on. He was this gay guy, and he would go on and on about sexual shit, but he was a queer theory professor. So it's like, right. I guess there are professors who specialize in that kind of content.
And it would be weird if he didn't, you know, walk that line from time to time, you know, because of his subject matter. It's a very sexually oriented subject matter, right? So to what degree is your field, you know, There's a very sexual aspect to what you do. It's not the only thing, but like there's a very sexual aspect to it.
Well, I would say it's 1/12 sexual.
Sure.
You know, we also deal with like money and finances and
Right.
writing books and homes and buying homes and creativity and children and like
Of course.
we deal with like everything. We're like everything that life could present to you. You know, you would do.
Right, but some people that are into astrology, and I know this, is some people that are into it only for the sexual aspect. They look into it because of sexual cycles and stuff like that.
Well, some people do.
Some people do. I know this to be true.
Yeah, I mean, I guess but like for example, I do readings on literally everything under the sun.
Of course.
Personally.
Yeah, that's you because you're a pro. You encompass the whole field. I'm just saying I've known people that only enter into that world because of sexual aspects.
Well, a lot of people do that because they're looking at dating, like, you know, what's your sun, moon, and rising, and you know that kind of thing. But like you and I have used astrology for timing art projects, and you know, like we use astrology for like literally everything under the sun. You know, timing weddings, and you know, like I use astrology for everything, but. I guess this topic has forever made me uncomfortable, and that's why I wanted to like address it with you as I guess my producer is. I really want to bury this axe, like I really want to know, you know, but I guess maybe it's a constant calibration thing.
It probably is. It probably is. Sexual content, or you know, sexual references. Are different than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. If you're talking about online content, you know, very different from, you know, period to period. So yeah, it's definitely a constant calibration thing.
Yeah.
Like what is acceptable now wasn't acceptable 5 years ago, you know.
Yeah.
And what is acceptable now won't be in 5 years. You know, I mean, it's like you have to sort of gauge what's going on at the time. So yeah, constant calibration is probably a good term.
All right. Well, I think that's a good talk. Anything else you want to add?
Not that I can think of right now.
All right, the lesson we have learned today is constant calibration.
Be yourself.
Okay.
No?
Well, I don't think I'm creepy naturally. I don't think I'm creepy. I think I'm just.
Did somebody say you were creepy?
No. I've actually never been called. I've been called a lot of things, but I've never been called creepy.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, well, I don't know. All right, well,
maybe now you will.
Dude, I'm not invested in manifesting that. I wish it was an easier answer. I wish I could just be like, you know, it's this or that. But I think it's a constant calibration, which is annoying.
It absolutely is 100% a constant calibration. Even during your podcast or during your show, in that hour time, you have to constantly calibrate what is acceptable and what is, you know.
Okay.
You have to check yourself constantly.
All right, I will continue to do that. Well, thank you, Billy.